One, it's Pam Lippitt from Communication is an Art, bringing you this week's podcast, and I'm going to bring in 1 second a very exciting guest, someone I'm very excited to share the stage with this month. Here we're going to bring her in. If you're listening, this is Kris Liebau. She's an engineering leadership coach. So I just want to say one thing before we get started. In the part when we were talking, I said to her, it's going to be about this amount of time. And her engineering skills popped right in. And she started evaluating where we're going to be and what we're going to do. And I'm like, okay, that is just great. Like that's both sides of your brain working together.
And I adjusted it for the chitty chat we had after my calculation.
See, so we're all good. And I, as I explained to all my guests, I like the free flow. I don't like perfection. I like sharing the platform and sharing ideas and letting the conversation go where it goes. So first I want to do a quick introduction of Kris. And we met through Inforum, which is a Michigan-based women's leadership and women's group. Used to be the Women's Business Chamber.
Women's
Economic. Something, but it's now Inforum. It's a great group and I love belonging to it. So after 20 years in manufacturing, and she's going to talk a little bit about this, and as a certified patroller with the National Ski Patrol, okay, you've already passed me. Kris moved on to her own business and it is called Action and Ease Leadership Coaching, and she specifically helps engineer executives and managers who seem to be running on autopilot. So that's the only introduction. We're going to talk about her podcast a little later as well, but that's the only introduction I want to give you because I want you to talk more than me. So here's Kris.
Oh, okay, no pressure. So you just want a little background?
I want a little background, how you got to where we are today, sitting in 2 minutes, how we got your whole life.
It was a dark and stormy. Okay, I got you, Pam. I got you. Okay. So when I was in high school and what do you want to be when you grow up, I was like, I'm going to solve the world's problems with math and science. Very logical, very rational. I got a mechanical engineering degree. Went out into the real world, got to do cool stuff, belts, motorcycles, bicycles, cars. I've been in aerospace, medical device, so a whole nice variety of, taste of the rainbow type of stuff. And as much as I love spreadsheets and flowcharts, and I said that I didn't like people, the further I got into my career, I realized that people are the magic in all of this. And that's where a lot of these challenges are coming from. We're not able to communicate to one another. We don't understand one another. Maybe we're saying the same thing. We don't realize that we're saying the same thing, or we're not changing, the hearts and minds of people. And so I'm like, this isn't a math problem, right? It's a people thing. And that's what inspired me to shift and moved into the leadership coaching, because it just didn't feel like the communication was there. The understanding was there. We're not seeing the long-term results we want. It's just a check in the box. So how do we really go about creating change for ourselves, for our organizations? And that's how I'm here today.
That's great. You call it your superpower, that idea of translating the human side into language that actually matches up with analytical minds.
Yeah.
There are some parts of my life that are very analytical, which is crazy because I'm really an artist, and that's why Communication is an Art is the name of my podcast. But I get it, because most of my life, like, that's a sliver that I'm good at, but it's not where I thrive. And it sounds like you found the place you thrive.
Yeah, I think the ability to be able to sort of walk this line and bridge the gap. Like, I get feedback from audiences that I speak to as a professional speaker, and my clients, where they're like, oh, right, people have been saying this all this time, but it never meant anything. I didn't see the value in it. Cerebrally, I understood it, but my give a hoot wasn't there. And so being able to help connect people to those resources that unlock a whole new level of understanding of connection and creativity is incredibly satisfying.
And do you see that, like, when you work with a group, do you work with groups as well as individuals? So when you work with a group, what is a tangible result, or are there tangible results you see between the beginning and the end of working together?
Yeah, when I do group work, typically I work a lot with intact teams, and people speak the language of their business, whatever they're an expert in, whatever's on their dashboard, company goals, what are they being measured on? They don't have a standardized language or have the words to be able to express things beyond the facts and data. Right. And it's not so much that we're talking about emotions at work, but understanding where we're missing something. For instance, right, when you work with senior leaders, you have people that are in different departments, right? And we, different divisions, and we want better communication throughout those. And we do have competing priorities in a sense, and that I'm responsible for marketing and I'm responsible for this. Now, we do all have to work together around that. And so, sometimes the challenge is there really actually something that's about a trust issue? Like somebody did something and you're like, hey, like we need to talk about that thing.
Because it makes perfect sense to that person.
Well,
it just doesn't connect.
Well, it's like when shit hits the fan and there's a catastrophe, like people pull together to put the fire out and move things forward, right? It's like, oh, there was this thing, like let's work together to clean up and then let's move on. But sometimes there's this underlying thing, like, this keeps happening because these people aren't keeping us in the loop, or they're cutting. And that right, that's something that erodes trust, that impacts people's desire to collaborate with other people, embrace that partners versus opponents. And sometimes that's the most important thing that needs to be talked about from an organizational effectiveness perspective. And so, right, having some common language or ways to bring that up so it doesn't explode or create problems. People don't want to be drama about stuff. Having that understanding and setting that expectation that those types of conversations are welcomed and valued.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm working with one of my clients. I'm working on an audit. Don't ask. Don't ask. It's a nonprofit. But I find that he asks half a question, the guy who's like the middleman. And apparently I am supposed to intuit what he means. And so we had this again last night. He sent me an email and specifically asked why something happened. Like why there was growth in the organization. I wanted to say, well, they hired me, but I didn't. So I told him why there was growth, whatever. And then he comes back and he says, no, I meant something totally different. So I understand. And while it's not an engineer, it's that more mathematical mind that doesn't communicate well.
Well, it's not right. It's not an engineer thing necessarily. Based on what you're saying, part of this, I think, is the know your audience part, and how it's not necessarily expert bias, but I think about this is the way I always look at this. And, it's the beach ball idea. It's like, I'm looking at the beach ball and it's white and it's red. And somebody else is like, there's no red from where I see it. So we're making assumptions that whatever it is that we're looking at, that somebody else sees that too. And so that's another part of especially like when we're busy and we're fast, we just want to be able to fire that thing off and just get our answer and have it come back. Right. And then people get mad, well, people can't read my mind, or they don't understand, where are things going off track?
Well, sadly, I think things are going off track with him because I'm not a man, but that's a conversation for a different day.
That's a whole nother episode, Pam.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's go back to you because I am really happy you're here. So when you help people, what do you have like 3 pain points that usually you see that need specific response, like that you see over and over?
Well, so the first thing that came to my mind when you said that is there's this part of like, I'm really smart. Why is this so hard? Especially, in the engineering place, right? Like a lot of my clients, they have at least a 1 degree, right? They're very independent. They're very figure outable on things, right? They're tech savvy, AI, all those things. And so when, they come up against especially when it's not math or something or whatever, right? It's just like, why is this so hard? Oh, this is some whatever phooey, right? And then we move on. And so I think, it's probably why a lot of people like don't know what coaching is, don't understand what it is. They're like, they don't realize that like we could have a conversation and I can help unpack that and do some of that root cause part. And so I think there's right, people come in like they're frustrated. It's like I've tried all those things, and and part of it is it's not always so much that like something that this technique didn't work, but you only tried it once. or
you tried it twice, but exactly the same.
Yeah, or or we do something, it was like too big of a bite. So a lot of times, client, I had a discovery call with somebody today that's interested in working with me, and she's like, well, like tell me about the structure. And I was like, interesting choice of words. I too love structure. What does structure mean to you? Because what structure means to me may be something completely different. Right. And so she's looking at it like, oh, well, like, is there like a 3-step process or something that happens here? And it's like more like, no, we kind of go in and we unpack, we find the knobs that we need to turn, and then we figure out what are the experiments that you want
She's
to run.
looking for the quick solve. Tell me to write the question differently and that will solve the problem.
No, I was going to say, this is, well, so I get to pick my clients too, right? Like I'm not going to, if I had a call with somebody that was like that, right? Like, I don't know if I work with them, that's a different conversation. So fortunately, usually by the time I'm talking to somebody, folks are pretty open-minded on that. But it's more about like kind of that linear thought process of like, oh, it's a knowledge thing. Like if I learn this technique, then I'll be able to go and do it. Well, right, change isn't just about knowing the thing, it's doing the thing and like trying and experimenting. So it's finding, like I said, it's finding those experiments that are the right size. My goal when I work with clients is, right, by the end of the session, if I ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you to go conduct this experiment? I want it to be a 9 or a 10, right? Or they're not going to go do it. And so that's a big part is how do you right size things? Because we're all really busy. We got a lot of different things going on. And like, I'm all about tuning and adjusting, like, they're like the radio.
Right.
Like
right.
back in the, so here we're making this assumption that people have actually dialed a radio to get a station. But that's a big part of how we look at like communication in general. Yeah. Right. It's just like, you're not quite coming in clear. It's not a big, massive tune-up. It's like, what's the shift that I need to make? And maybe it's appreciating the fact that the other person that I'm talking to is brand new to the company. They don't understand half the acronyms that are coming out of my mouth.
Right. Well, that's interesting. And how long do you usually coach for, or how long till the people feel that that fine tune has done something successful?
Well, I mean, everybody comes to coaching in a different place. So it really depends on where you come in and how high your goals are for that. So I usually, when I start working with somebody, right, it's a minimum of 6 sessions, or I have another kind of more of an intensive program that's a 7-week thing where we meet for, 7.5-hour sessions, because part of it is we've got to build some awareness. We got to understand what's going on. We need to build some awareness, because that's the biggest part about making change, is understanding where we choose differently. Because so often we're just running around on autopilot because we're busy and we got things to do. We're not necessarily present and intentional. And when we start looking at where we want to make change and where those opportunities are, things look a lot different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's really interesting. Let's talk more about curiosity, because I see that that's in a lot of the things you present me. I saw you use the word curiosity. So tell me how your curiosity led you here and how you then take it to help others.
So I'm a lifelong learner. And I think that that's part of where the shift came, where I was like, oh, I actually think people are really cool and they're fascinating. It's having these conversations and looking at some of the themes that emerge, or the words that people choose.
Like right? Curiosity.
Well, there's that. Again,
I'm saying you choose that word. That's a perfect example of the words that are chosen.
Well, I think, and maybe this is whatever the neurodivergent part of me, but it's like, oh, well, what if we look at it this way? Well, what if we look at it this way? And like, wow, that's really an interesting comment. I wonder why they chose those words to do that. Or, oh, that's interesting. Like I said, mention the word structure. Somebody like, well, what does structure mean to you? Because like you said, communication is an art. We make so many assumptions that we know what people are talking about. We're like, oh yeah, I think I understand that. And really it was whew.
But you'll never admit it. Not you personally. Some people are like, you know how they have like yes men, like people who will answer you yes just to make you happy. Some people I find answer yes even though it's swooshed over your head, because they don't want to admit that they have follow-up questions. And follow-up questions can be gold.
There's a lot that goes into that. I mean, sometimes people really do like, oh yes, like that has, based on what you have said, I've created this mental model and I know what I'm going to go do to it. Will it meet your expectations? I don't know that. Right. And so that, right, that's the conversation, so I'm right, whatever, perfection, all the stuff. Right. So like, well, what does done look like? I start going through my criteria of what are your expectations? How, what are the things I need to ask myself so that I know it's probably time to show this to you? Because like, I like to turn in work that's an A+. I know this about myself, but you know what? Some people just want a B-.
I want an A-.
Right. And so like, this is a part of this whole communication thing. And right, because I'm like, I only know how to turn an A+. We're gonna be like, why is it taking so long? I'm like, because it's not done yet. Right. But I passed their done 2 days ago. And so
I stopped everything else I was working on to do this immediately, because I never asked the question, when would you like to see something? Because the answer is often, if you can get me something in a week, that would be great.
Yeah. And what's something? Like, is that a shitty first draft? Or again, it's like the time and expectation part of
follow-up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And let me understand. Let me understand what you're saying. Let me repeat it back to you so I make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah. So I always say that curiosity calibrates communication for connection. Right. So it's kind of like, well, let me try it this way. And if I, let me try it a couple different ways to make sure that I've landed, that we're agreed, especially, and this is part of the, right. I'm talking about my lived experience, because if I'm going to go walk away and come over here, I do better when things are very clearly scoped out. right? Like what's in scope, what's out of scope, what's phase 2, what's phase 10 type of stuff.
Project management tools must be your pal. They give you those like various steps.
So, yeah. So, and I think that that's, you know, I have a very high level of self-awareness. At least that's what my therapist tells me. But, but, you know, these are things that we learn about ourselves over time. And so, you know, is that a strength or a weakness? Right. Well, it depends on who you're talking to, but I know this about myself. I know the conversations I need in order to be able to go off and do something and on when to come back so that I can be productive during that time and right knowing that I'm kind of making it in the ballpark. Some people don't want to ask those questions because they don't know enough about themselves. They don't know enough about the other person, right? They don't want to feel like by asking questions they're looking dumb, and right, all of those, right, not facts and data, but those emotional things that are processing in the background all the time.
Never would I ever have thought I was dumb. Oh, like every day. But you know, it's just human nature. But then I think this is really important because this puts together that human side of the conversation to create the data and the analytical side that you're striving for. And if you don't have that, if you're not able to do the human interaction and feel confident asking the questions or having conversation, it must be very frustrating when your work is not seen as great, because you think you're doing the greatest. You probably are doing a great thing and a great product based on what you thought it was supposed to be.
Yeah. Have you ever seen, oh gosh, there's a cartoon that's out there. So you mentioned the project management, the tire swing cartoon or whatever. There's a comic thing, and it's like somebody put the directions and it's like, this is what these people thought it was. And these people thought, you know, it wasn't quite the telephone game, but it was just, you know, these are the different way that people have interpreted this. And that's the, you know, I always like to come back and be like, yeah, this is kind of what I was thinking. Is this sort of what you were thinking? So I was like, I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad we asked. You know?
Yes, I have a cartoon. I think it's still on my website. And it's two people on the opposite sides of a circle looking at a number. And one person sees a 6 and one person sees a 9. Okay, we're not editing. Okay. For those who are listening on the podcast now, they're in silence while we nod at each other. So just so you know, we're not leaving you hanging. We're actually laughing and in agreement. So,
yeah. Well, and I think, you know, too, from the analytical part and like looking at something, you know, looking, you know, the mistakes that I made, you know, you make this beautiful graph, you know, pivot table, whatever, you've synthesized this data, right? And you're like, here, you toss it out. And, you know, naively, I was like, oh, well, I created this beautiful thing. Obviously, this communicates everything that's in my head to you because now you're looking at the same picture. Like you're drawing all the same conclusions and everything else that I am. Right now, I know it's like, okay, we have the picture, but we need to understand our audience. We need to know what they care about. We need to actually talk about, you know, what are the takeaways from this. And, you know, I think that's the assumption part that happens. It's like we put something out there, we feel like it's a fact or in data, we feel like it's a black and white, but we can all have different thoughts about the impact of that data on the different things that we're doing.
Side question. Did you ever turn in something that you thought was an A+ and not get an A on it?
Oh
my God.
Yeah.
About it.
Well, so here's where the pause came from. You started to say that, and I was like, I think I know where she's going. So my brain went in a different direction because in high school, like, so writing wasn't that writing wasn't really my thing. Right. So that was something that I worked on. Well, when I got to college, I'm in engineering. So like the bar for the writing wasn't super high. And I actually turned in papers that I wrote in high school and got better grades on them.
That I also turned in a college.
So
the same paper, not us, whatever. So we are really at the 25-minute mark, which is kind of crazy. So I want to talk about your podcast quickly, and then I want you to tell me something I missed asking you. Was there something I missed that you want to talk about? So first, I'll give you time to think, because our brain can do two things at once. We can walk and chew gum, and if you're turning in A+ papers, you can definitely walk and chew gum at the same time. But your podcast is called, wait, I have it here. It's called, here we are, Leading Beyond the Spreadsheet. So tell me a little bit about your podcast. I always love it, and I love to give props to someone else's podcast. So
yeah, so it's really a lot about the things we talked today. It's right. We have the facts and data. We have the spreadsheet, right? We're very rational thinkers. We have that. We're locked down. We're the subject matter experts, and we feel really good about the data. And then we're leading teams, and there's this people part, right? And we just hope that when people are really smart, that they're going to kind of figure it out. We may not know how to lead or to have those. I was talking earlier about those conversations about trust, or how do we motivate people? Because sometimes, if achieving something motivates us, we just assume that by laying this thing out there, that's going to motivate somebody else to do that. Not everybody's motivated the same way. And so it's really about how are we bringing some awareness and perspective to some of the challenges that we have, to, put some different nuggets out there for people to start to explore and maybe look at things with at a slightly different angle, or with a better prescription in their glasses.
I just got new glasses, so I understand that completely. So tell me, is there a topic we missed? Is there a favorite story you want to share? This is your time.
Oh my gosh. There's so many stories, Pam. I could go do whatever story hour with stuff. I think just, coming back around is we make assumptions. There's so many things that are happening that we're making assumptions, and that we need to build relationships. I have clients who are like, I want to talk about somebody's dog. I'm like, I get that. Right. I'm not saying that has to be that, but there's value in building some of, talking about things that aren't work, having conversations with people, building some of that trust. There's other stuff that seeps in as we're learning about those people, because it's not just about the facts and the thing. It's when we're looking to develop people, what are the patterns that we're seeing? What are the challenges? How do we make it okay for somebody to ask the question, and be more
missing the water cooler. It used to be over the water cooler. You had those kind of conversations. You had those, can you help me with kind of thing, or whatever. And I don't think that exists anymore.
Well, the big thing, Pam, is that the more automated that we're getting, the more the AI is coming into this, the more sophisticated programs that we have to do the things that we relied on, some of these technical things before. Your professional advantage is now being able to build relationships and have that curiosity and build those connections. That's going to be the thing that helps future-proof your career. I want you
to repeat that, because I think if anyone takes anything away from this podcast and talking with Kris, that's it. What you just said about creating the differential and making your job sticky is how you interact with others. Did I summarize that well?
Well, so when you say interact with others, I'm thinking do you play nice? But it's really, No, I know what you mean because we've had that, but right, that's a great example of like how somebody could hear that and be like, oh, I know what Pam was talking about. And looking at this, our ability to have the conversations and be creative with people, there's so much less about here, please go execute this task for me that happens, because now we're the people. I mean, we still need to have all this because now we're the people, we're now working together to build these systems that are that are doing the load lift of these. And we're bringing, you look at implementing an ERP system or something like that, being able to understand the different stakeholders and ask those questions and bringing people together. That is a superpower.
Bringing people together is definitely a superpower. And with that, Kris, how can people get a hold of you if they are interested in working with you?
Yeah, the easiest way to connect is go to actionandeasecoaching.com. There's a big red button up in the right corner, and you can grab a half an hour to talk turkey. Or if you're that's if you're forthright. But my analytically minded people are very smart, and they like to do their homework first before they ever would hit that button and talk to me. So if you're one of those people, feel free to stalk me on LinkedIn. You can find me, Kris Liebau. And also feel free to check out my podcast, Leading Beyond the Spreadsheet. There's links from the website, from LinkedIn. You can find it on YouTube, Leading Beyond the Spreadsheet.
It's terrific. So with that, I'm going to thank you for giving us some time and sharing. And I think this was just such a interesting and a different conversation than I normally have, but I think it was wonderful. I think that, there are all kinds of people in life, and we have to interact with all kinds of people, and we have to be able to do that. And to create conversation. I'm all about creating conversation. So I want to just thank you, Kris. I will hopefully see you soon in person, in real life, as they say. And with that, folks, this is a wrap, and I will see you next week for one of my own podcasts just with me about communication. So I hope you'll continue to join and spread the word. Thanks, everyone. I wanted to share with you a new offering from my company, Pamela Lippitt Communications. I'm actually offering a communications audit. So who is this for? It's for a company, a nonprofit, where there's new leadership, new board members, or new senior hires who may not be up to speed and are seeing different things when they're looking at different pieces of paper, because really it's the new people who are really diving in and looking at things. It could be because you have new programs or new clients or new services, and you want to give them a consistent message about your company. It may be that people are asking the same questions all the time. That means you should be answering it in your materials so they don't have to ask. And it's also if you're seeing internal frustrations among your team. Maybe they don't have the right materials they need. So if you're interested in a communications audit for your company, I am giving a bonus for anyone who mentions hearing this on the podcast. Not only will I do a communication audit of your materials, but I'll also come in person or via Zoom and meet with your team to go over all the materials as we start and as we finish to make sure everyone's on the same page. So with that, shoot me a text or an email if you're interested, and I am happy to reach out and discuss how your communications can be smoother, more concise, and lead to more business. Thank you.